Welcome to the Speak Pact podcast, where high-performing speakers and the producers who hire them merge to give you the insider secrets to the lucrative speaking industry. Antoniette Roze, your podcast host and celebrated speaker agent, unveils insider success strategies. Discover a nexus of thought leaders and bookers, maximizing your potential in each and every episode. Your ticket to ultimate speaking success begins right here. Catch the transformative insights waiting for you on the Speak Pact podcast, hosted by the industry powerhouse herself, Antoniette Roze.
Welcome back to Speak Pact. Thank you for joining our podcast. Today, you are going to dive into the world of why a speaker would even want to consider going to the trouble of writing a book, right? We're already getting their content out there. Why go to that trouble? Well, we have an expert in that space with us today, Brenda Haire, and she has really created an ecosystem that can make books pretty darn worth doing. So welcome to the stage, Brenda.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm excited to share how easy it actually is and what speakers can do to get started.
Well, that's probably the first question that comes to most speakers' minds, right? Because especially in my world, a lot of the speakers that come and listen to the Speak Pact podcast and kind of hang out with me, they are high achievers in other areas who just happen to want to also utilize their voice to get a bigger message out there, to get some of their strategies out there. So let's say doctors, CEOs, right? People who have pretty packed schedules and speaking on top of it. And now what? Writing a book, right? That it just seems daunting and like a huge amount of work. You seem to have dialed in a more simple process. I know you do book writing retreats and different things. Tell us why, from your angle, it doesn't have to be so daunting.
Yes, great question. So here's the thing about writing a book. There's a lot of variables, and so it can seem very daunting. But I'm the expert in that, and if you lean in on me, I'll take you to the finish line. So I have different ways I work with professionals, as I call them, because they're not necessarily writers, right? They're speakers first. Like you said, they're doctors first. I have a lady right now that I'm working with. She's a professional speaker. And when I heard her speak, I was looking around the room going, where are her books? Like, why doesn't she have books? She's a phenomenal speaker. And each session, she was the keynote at an event, and each session was a chapter. And I'm like, where is her books? And so instead of taking notes as a participant, I started taking notes on this is chapter one. This is this is what she needs to be doing. And by the end of it, of course, I went over and talked to her, and she actually called my name and said, I need to speak to you. And I said, I know, because you need to write a book. And she said, how do you know? And I said, I know. and that's the thing. It's a lot easier than they think, but they're not writers. And so how do professionals that aren't writers, whether it's you're a professional speaker, which that's a great profession in and of itself. But like you said, so many of them are also doctors, lawyers, any profession really, realtors. They could all have their own book. How do they do it? They already have the content. Most of them are living and breathing it every single day, right? They're producing it somehow, whether they're talking to a client or whatever. So I encourage people to record themselves, to use that as a way to gather their content and then give it to professional to format it, whatever that looks like. So this particular author that I'm working with right now, I'm calling her an author because she is one now. She doesn't even type. So she literally had to have everything transcribed from her recordings. She does not even type. She does not even know, doesn't open Word, doesn't open. And that's fine. Those don't have to be your skills, right? You're the expert in what you're the expert in. And that expertise is what your audience needs. They don't need you to be an expert writer, a book publisher, a book marketer, all of those things. Let those professionals handle that, and you do what you do.
Yeah, one speaker I've had the privilege of getting to know and talking with, his original language is Spanish, right? And he wanted to write a book for America, for North America, but was concerned that he might not get the grammar just right, all of the things, right? And you're exactly right. Whether it's you or another professional, there are people who that's their space. They can
Exactly.
make it all pretty for you. What they don't have is your approach, your point of view, your stories, and your methodology, right? Your
Exactly.
strategy and your framework. So
That's exactly it.
is there ever a case, an instance where you would tell a speaker, yeah, go out, write a book on your own. You can do this from beginning to end and you're going to be fine. Like for who would fit that sentence from you?
Primarily someone who doesn't have the means to hire the professionals, right? It does cost money to invest in the professionals. In the case you were just talking about, that person would definitely need a developmental editor to make sure that they're translating properly into the English language. And that's the most expensive part of publishing a book is editing. So if you can't afford that, you probably need to start on your own and do it. Now, I don't ever suggest people self-publish without using a professional because it's going to show in the end result, and that's not going to help you. That's not going to get you to where you need to be. But there are certain things you can do yourself. If you can type, you can write your own, physically type your own words in. There are other ways to get your words in digitally as well. And so you can do some of those things yourself. If you don't, you can pay a transcriptionist. You can pay, someone to literally come alongside you and take notes and ghostwrite your book for you. There's all levels. It's a matter of what you can afford and can't afford. And some people just starting out as speakers, they don't have a lot of income to, that's why they're trying to become a speaker, right? Is to make the income. And so there might be some things that they need to do themselves. And I have a program for that. I have a group coaching program for people who are more DIYers who want to get in there, learn the content, learn the process, have the time to invest in that. And then on the opposite scope of that, I have professionals who they don't have the time, but they have the money and they're willing to just pay somebody else to do it. They don't want to learn it. They're doctors, lawyers, professionals in other areas that they don't have the time. And so they would rather just pay someone else to do it. So either way you come at it, there are options for you. I am a believer that if you're a professional and expert, like you said, if you have a methodology, especially if you're already that far in and where you have a method that you're teaching someone, whatever that is, whether you're a doctor and you're teaching a health, methodology for health or weight loss or whatever it is, you already have the method. That's a huge part of it right there. Teaching people that and pulling that out of someone is difficult, right? But if you already have that, the rest is cake. It really is.
Okay. So most speakers are going to say, I know I'm not going to get rich writing a book.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to invest a lot of time or money into doing that. In your experience, what is the actual practical REI? I just did a lot of hiking.
Yeah.
ROI,
Yeah.
the ROI and the tail. Like when can you really see that book at least paying for itself? If nothing else.
So speakers who are actively speaking have a better chance of seeing that ROI quicker, right? And that you don't have to already be a speaker. When I came out of the gate with my first book in 2018, I set myself up on a speaking tour. I set myself up on a 16-week book tour because I did want to sell books right out of the gate. And we teach you how to do that if that's what you're interested in. Now, if you're already speaking, like the case of the author that I was talking about earlier, she's already booked out. I mean, she's been booked for years and she's sitting in rooms of 300 more people. Having a book is a no-brainer. You're going to make more money than, just it's ticking down right then. The minute you walk in the door, people are like, oh, she's got a book. Let me buy. Even before you're opening your mouth, they're buying the book because they're saying, oh, this is a professional. I came here for her content and she's got it packaged right here for me. Let me grab the book now. So the ROI is a lot quicker if you're already a book speaker. But if you're not, we can set you up to get those bookings. Well, and you're going to get the booking faster because you have a book to back you up. You're seen as the expert. I mean, think about it. It's just like with anything else. I was just talking to someone else. If you're standing next to your choice is between two speakers. This one has 10 books. This one has none. They're speaking on the same topic. Which is the perceived expert? They might both be, but the one with the books backing her or him is going to be perceived as the expert for sure.
Right. So a couple things that you said. First of all, to my Speak Packed audience, we're letting you know about ways to go about adding a book to your marketing assets, to your assets.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you do it on your own, take some of this advice, do it on your own, or you hire somebody like Brenda, or you happen to have somebody in your family who's maybe written a book, right? We just want to bring you the information. So
Absolutely. And
I
it's
just
an
want to
additional
make that
stream.
clear.
Yeah, it's an additional stream of income for them, right? It's kind of the flip side. When you're someone starting, they want to be a writer, we have to teach them the additional streams of income because, like you said earlier, the profit on a book, you're selling a book. If you're selling it directly, you maybe will make $10 to $15 on it, depending on what you're selling it for. But if you're going through any retailer, you're lucky to walk away with $5 a book. It's going to take a lot of money to live off of, a lot of books to sell, right? To live off of that income. So we teach authors different streams of income. If you're coming as a speaker or you're already interested in being a speaker, well, then there's already an additional stream. So this is just adding an additional stream for you. And it's once you're established with your method, with your topic, with your area of expertise, the diversity of products that can come of it, books, journals, Bible studies, whatever it is, it's just endless. And so you can rapidly recoup that additional income through books.
Yeah. And some of the powerful ways that I've seen speakers utilize books is it's absolutely a door opener. Like you said, it does establish a certain amount of authority. It's not the end all be all. It's part of a bigger package of
Absolutely.
assets that you bring to the table, the way you present yourself, the way you bring your other speaking and marketing assets. But it certainly is a boon. And I encourage, if you are a speaker, have a book. I'm speaking to myself. I've, had books in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
right, for years, but I am one of those that I don't know how I could carve out the time. I'm sure I've got a dear colleague, and when she's ready to write a book, and I think she's got 4 or 5, she sets her alarm for 4:30 every morning because she's also a busy businesswoman, and she gives herself the 2 hours right in the morning to write. So where there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely.
You can figure it out and find a way, but it certainly is nice to be able to link arms with somebody who that's what they do, and they can help you get that done. When in terms of ROI, I wanted to talk about some of these different streams of income that you were alluding to. So number one, it's a door opener to not only more engagements, but higher value engagements.
Absolutely.
Number two, if they can't reach your speaker's fee, let's say you're $15,000 speaker and their budget stops at $10,000. That other $5,000, depending on the size of the group, can be pulled from another budget, their L&D budget, the learning and development budget, if that organization happens to have that. And they can pull funds from that budget in order to buy your book, right? For each
Absolutely.
member of the audience. To me, a book is like Velcro, like a glue. I just interviewed a fabulous lady this week who what she utilizes her books for is opening up the doors for speaking engagements. And she happens to be a branding and marketing expert, one very well-known makeup company, right? She happens to love their lipstick. And so she actually will send her book with a little brochure that's actually personalized to the biggie, right? Whatever CEO or C-suite level person she's speaking to, and speak very specifically to them why she loves their brand, why she chooses them over others, why she's actually made it part of her brand. And by the way, here's my book. That is very memorable, right?
Absolutely.
There can be
Yeah,
a
it
lot
certainly
of
is.
people.
I
Yeah.
think where people go wrong with that is that people see their books as business cards in the sense that they're handing them out to everyone on the street. Everyone they meet, they're handing them to them. Whereas in your example, she's very specifically targeting her ideal event planner, right? And that's where using your book as a business card is very strategic and makes perfect sense. Where you don't want to waste it is passing it out to everybody and their brother that's not going to make that decision, right? Getting it in the hands of the decision maker is what's important. But it has to be packaged professionally in order to do so, right? You can't have a self-printed horrible cover, all of those things. Or if they Google the book, it's sitting next to another book with the same title, and this title has 15,000 reviews and your book has none. And they're looking at the two going, well, why is this book titled the same as this? And this doesn't make any sense. And right, then it's done you a disservice. So having it professionally done is so important. Using it that way is huge. The other way I like to see it used is that sometimes speakers, especially when they're just starting out, they will try to do free stuff. They're like, I just want to speak everywhere so I can get some video of myself speaking, so I can get the brand new speakers out there. They're like, I just want to speak anywhere I can practice my speaking, right? Well, great. You're going to get lower paying gigs, and the way to supplement the income is by having those books in the back of the room, because you're going to sell more books that way. You're going to bring in that additional income. The other way is that if the events are promoting you everywhere, right? They're promoting on their socials, your socials, you're promoting this event. People who cannot attend the event, they may go Google you and buy your book because they can't attend the event, but now it's additional marketing for an asset that you already have. So it's not even the asset that you're marketing for, but they're finding a resource that they can buy from you. And that's really important.
I love that you brought that up, because I've done it. I've actually done that. Oh, I'd really love to go to that event. I can't. But I see they have a book. Let me grab the book. Yes, I absolutely love that. All right, so let's talk about brass tacks, right? Whether it's with you or with an organization similar to you, what should a speaker expect to invest in time and in money to hire somebody? Like it's publish and tell. I love that. Instead of publish and sell, you say publish and tell. But to hire an organization like yours to help them from A to Z, and how far do you go? Do you actually get them published with a big publishing house, or is it more of a self-publishing thing? Kind of give us the ABCs of how that really works. What would I, as a speaker, need to know going in that I'm going to need to invest with my time in my pocketbook?
Yes, great question. Tons of variables. That's probably the worst part about the publishing industry, is there's so many variables, but understanding your options is really important. So I'll try to make it as clear as possible. So in the publishing world, you have self-publishing over here, and you have traditional publishing over here. And in between that, there's about 1 million different opportunities. Many are called vanity presses. Some are called, they'll call themselves hybrid publishers. There's a lot of different names in between. And the biggest thing to know is that when you're self-publishing, you're pretty much doing everything yourself, or maybe you're hiring some professionals to do a couple pieces, but you're the one who owns the rights to your book. You're making all the decisions, and you're ultimately the responsible party putting it up. And you also paying all the expenses, but you're getting all the royalties back. On the traditional side, you may or may not get to make all the decisions, and you don't get to keep all your royalties, and you may or may not get an advance. It just depends on who you're going with, what they see, that type of thing. Now, if you're a huge speaker, you're getting those $15,000 speaking engagements. You've got a huge following on socials, all of those things. You're likely to get picked up by a traditional publisher because they want to make money off of you, and so they're going to align themselves with somebody who has a big audience. Whether you want to share your money with them, your royalties with them, is up to you, right? Because you can ultimately pay on the front end someone like myself to professionally self-publish you. You'll get all the bells and whistles that you would of a traditional publisher, but without having to share the royalties. So it's kind of a decision you have to make on the front end. Do you want to wait and potentially, give away royalties by going with the traditional publisher? And I say wait because you have to solicit them. You have to send letters, and sometimes you need agents. It depends on who you're going with to get in the door. And then you risk not getting in the door, right? Because some of them won't even take a look at you. Or you can go quickly to market. You can, especially if you have your information already, you can get it written, published, everything good to go. I'm working with an author right now. Her story, she's already had it written. We went to editing. You can get everything done pretty quickly. Now, I don't like to give time frames because people are like, well, I need to know how much time.
Before you go on,
go ahead.
Yeah, before you go on, Brenda, let me ask a question regarding that piece.
Sure.
is there a lot to be said, or is there a diminishing value in going with a traditional publisher for the prestige, for the authority that company brings? Is that still a valid thing? Or with our digital world and some of the, self-publishing has become a lot easier than it once was. So it used to be a vanity thing, but now it kind of is a dollar. You have control over your own content,
Mm-hmm.
and you get the money, right? Instead of the
Right.
pennies, you get the dollars. What do you say about that? What is the value of going with a traditional publishing house, as far as authority and prestige, I guess?
Yes, that still is there in a lot of ways. It is when you, to the average reader, to the average audience member, it's still there. For someone who knows the industry backwards and forwards, when I look at books and people are like, "Oh, my publisher, I'm so excited," and then I'll look at the book and I'm like, "This isn't a publisher at all. This is," and you really look, because I know the difference, right? And so a lot of people are calling their publishers when they're actually not. They're self-publishing using somebody else's name. And so even some of these bigger publishing houses, because the self-publishing industry has exploded because of the digital age, even some of them now have these vanity presses that they're helping people self-publish. You can pay them now to get their name, that type of thing. So there is some of that happening. And so that's watering down that prestige a little bit. But there's still those big names out there that if you signed on with them, you're going to get the prestige. You're probably going to get on some of the talk shows and things like that, because they're going to set that up for you. But that's going to cost you royalties and all that. And so it's just a matter of where your priorities lie. How soon do you want to get your content out there? Do you want to own it all? And then, do you not? That type of thing.
Also, if your self-published book, it does really, really well, from what I've seen, you are much more likely to then attract maybe one of the bigger publishing houses. So there's that piece too.
Yeah, it works both ways. And then at that point, though, you have to decide, because it's kind of like, well, I've already done all the work and sold all the books myself, so why would I go over here? But usually it's because they're dangling a really big carrot, because they see your value too, and so they really want you. And so you just have to weigh that out. It's, kind of in the author world, we say it's selling your soul. How much is it worth to sell the rights to your baby? Because that's basically what you're doing. And you just have to decide. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with either way. There's nothing wrong with traditional publishing at all. If one called me today and had a great offer, I would probably go traditional, depending on what it was. But more than likely, I wouldn't, just because I can do it myself and I know how to do it myself. And why give them the royalties unless they had a really sweet offer? But
right.
So time frames. Time frames is the one that, this variable. You can publish a book today. You and I could sit down right now and write a book in an hour. We could publish this content right here as a book and be done have our little ebook on Amazon today. It's really that simple and quick. The quality of the book, right? Just the same as we're live right now. And so there's, hiccups and, talking over and lapses in time and all the things, right? It's the same with a book, right? If you published it quickly, there's going to be errors. There's going to be content missing, all of those things. And so the more time you take with it, the better it's going to be. The more rounds of editing you go through, the better it's going to be. But all of those things take time. And people will say, well, how much time? Well, how much time do you have to approve those edits? How much time do you have to sit down and look at those edits? So it really just depends on how much time somebody has to put into it versus the editors they're using, if their editor is available, how much time their editor's taking. I have a professional editor. She can usually get a 40,000 word book back to me, which is the average self-help type book, back to me in about 2 weeks. She gets that back to me in 2 weeks. I can then do my self edits in a day and have that book ready to go the next day. And so it's pretty quickly. On the writing side of it, again, how long does it take you to write your book? Like you said, your friend's doing it 2 hours a day every morning, right? But if you say, well, I sit down and I type, 500 words an hour, okay, you want a 50,000 word book, how many hours is it going to take you to get there? So It's really depends. There's so many variables in it. Could you have a book done in a year? Absolutely. Could you have a book done in 6 months? Absolutely. Anything outside of 6 months is really somebody who is got a lot of time, who's ready to sit down and focus, has somebody walking them through the process. 6 months is a tighter window to get it turned around. And people say, oh, but I've seen them do it. Okay, but are you ordering proof samples? And what time of year are you doing that? If you're publishing in November and you're trying to order proofs, it's going to be a while. If you're publishing, trying to get books as speakers, if you're trying to get a load of books sent to your house for your speaking gig or drop ship to your next speaking event, are they going to be there in time because you're ordering in the holiday season? So all of those variables just really play into it. And that's where hiring a coach or working with a traditional publisher who has the experience of all those variables is just really important.
Okay, fabulous. What should they expect to pull out of pocket?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. For my services, if you just want to come to me, you have a finished project and you just want cover design, interior design, all of that, you're looking at around 2,000, depending on your word count for editing and all of that, around 2,000. So it's not too bad. That's with you owning all the rights to your book. Now, if you need more in-depth help and you need one-on-one coaching and all of that, my private coaching starts at $10,000. That doesn't include that $10,000 or that $2,000 fee. So you're looking at 12 for the entire package. If you're looking for group coaching, my current group coaching rate is $997 for the year or $97 a month. And that's group coaching. Either program is twice a month. You'll see me face-to-face. Whether I see you face-to-face is whether you're a private client or not. So my private clients, we meet on Zoom or in person if they're local, and twice per month, give them their assignment. They do their assignment.
How far do you take them? Because really 12,000 is not a lot from beginning to end, right? It's an investment for sure, but I've seen numbers much bigger than that. So
yeah, much bigger.
How far do you take them? Do you take them from concept all the way to pitching?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess you're not pitching to get it published because you're self-publishing. So,
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Where I'm taking them from concept to whatever finish line they can get to in a year. Those prices cover a year. So if they don't do their homework, they don't write their book, they hem-haw around or whatever, they're not going to get finished. Now, my goal, and it's funny, people will laugh at me because I get angry with my clients when they don't do their work because I'm like, you've paid me. I want to help you. And my husband's like, just let them pay you. And I'm like, I can't. They're paying me for a reason. I want to help them. And so I really stay with my clients and try to get them across the finish line because that's what they paid for, right? They want a published book in hand. Now, if they publish their book within 6 months and they're ready to, and I have a client like that right now, she's published one book. I think she published it within 2 months of becoming she's in my group coaching. Within 2 months, she published. It may be more like 3 months. She was pretty much done with the book. She went through, polished up her framework, and then went into editing. And so she published that first book. She's on book number 2, still within her year time frame. And now we're talking marketing strategies, right? We're talking book tours. We're talking how Amazon ads, all the things, right? So it's really what point you can get to in the process with what point I'm going to get you to. Now, if you're done and you're ready and you're like, okay, now I'm ready to keep working with you and I want you to help me with the book tour. I want you to help me with the marketing. Then we just move into the next season, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah, fabulous. Okay, so 1 out of 10 would be authors, right, that come to you. Let's say on your 1-to-1 package, 1 out of 10, how many of those are probably going to get their book done or very close to done within a year?
The one-on-ones, they'll get it done. Yeah. The one-on-ones, yeah, they'll get it done. Yeah. As long as, when they come in, we talk pretty seriously about the commitment because it is an investment. And like you said, I've seen much bigger packages. I have offered much bigger packages when I worked for a different publishing company, up to 10 times that amount. I've signed packages for $150,000 before. So there are definitely other packages out there and available. And a lot of the different services you see out there are anywhere in that range, usually 5 to 10,000 or more. But the one-on-one clients, I really work with them in the beginning to talk to them about their timeframes, to be realistic about what's going on in their life. Even from week to week when we're meeting, I say, okay, what's going on in the next 2 weeks before we meet again? Are you traveling? Are you speaking? Are you, is there a wedding? Whatever it is, so that I'm giving them homework that they can actually get done for when we meet again. And then I keep in a document for them from every time we meet, what we discussed and what their homework is. So they never have to figure it out. They just go there, they look, okay, this is what I got to get done before I meet with her. And some of them are doing it the night before. One of my clients, the last time I was on with her husband was doing the homework while he was sitting next to her. And I was like, so are you done? She's like, no, he's doing it right now. He's typing it for me right now. But I'm keeping them up on it. I'm pressing.
But it's going, right? It's momentum. It's moving.
Yeah. And I'm a tough coach. You hired me to be your coach. You didn't hire me to be your sister or your bestie. You hired me to be your coach. Do you want to cross the finish line and win the race, or do you want to, lose? And I just don't want you to lose. So I'm going to do my best.
I love that. And I would assume that you don't necessarily want to spend that year with somebody and not see the book, right? You're going to spend a year with someone. So give me the numbers for a group program, like a 1 out of 10 that invest in the much lower cost group program. How many of them actually cross the finish line within a year? Or at least get really close to missing it?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Probably 40%. 4 out of 10.
Fair.
Yeah. And it's not, obviously it's not on my part, right? Because I'm showing up every week with or without them. I'm showing up on a coaching call twice a month. I'm answering questions anytime in the group. It's just a matter of, some of them I have, and they'll renew for the next year, and they'll renew for the next year. And I'm like, what are you doing? Come on, let's write this book. And, it's like, I appreciate your money, but why are you giving it to me if you're not going to write the book? And it's almost like they don't want to let go of the dream. So they just keep holding on to it by paying, which is great, for my checking account, but not so great for my referral business or anything. I'm like,
right.
If I get it across the finish line, but some people, they've got family crisis, they've got this going on, they've got that going on. And they signed on to a dream. They didn't sign on to the action behind the dream. And so I would say that that's a lot of.
So let's talk about that, Brenda. Do you see that the authors with a really clear why, like a really clear who they're going to bring the transformation to, why they're doing it, versus I'd really like to have a book behind my name, right? That just feels like that's a dream. Do you see a through line between those who really do take the action and get it done? What are the qualities of that person? What do they usually have?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, what a great question. I think that the person who is the expert, they see themselves as the expert already. That's half the battle in writing a book, is overcoming the hurdle. Even the author that I was speaking of earlier, who's a fantastic speaker, she'll tell me, I just don't think I can do this. And I'm like, you don't have to, you are an expert speaker. You let me be the expert book publisher. All I need are your words. Give me your words. And there's different levels. If somebody truly needs a ghostwriter, we'll get them a ghostwriter if they can afford that. But someone who, they've got to have the oomph to get past. Now the qualities, they have to be a go-getter, an action taker, a self-starter, someone who's going to get up and do the work without somebody holding their hand every day. Whether you're a private client with me or a group client with me, I'm not going to hold your hand every single day. I just can't be there for you. I'm not waking up next to you going, come on, honey, get out of bed, write your book. So someone who is a self-starter and can really see that. But if you already have, like, especially speakers who, even if they're just starting and they're just like, I have this message, it's so clear, I've got it outlined. If they have one speech outlined, they have a book. They're ready. They're ready. They just need to sit down with me and let's discuss it and get it out. If they have one speech outlined, they're ready.
Fabulous. Okay, I love that. And if you're a speaker, you should have that, right? So fabulous. Tell me a little bit about what kind of money and even impact is the average speaker leaving on the table if they don't have a book?
I would say that if you're speaking, you're leaving for every body that's in the room. So if you're speaking to a room of 50 people, you're leaving 25, half of those people would buy a book from you. So if you're speaking to a room of 300 people, 150 of those people would buy a book from you. If you're selling that book directly to them, as you should be as a speaker, you're going to be making about $10 a book. So at every speaking engagement that you have 300 people at, you're leaving $1,500 right there on the table. And that's just for the one book, right? That doesn't include if you have a journal to go with the book or whatever other extra materials you may have. You're leaving it all on the table. I've seen speakers speak that don't even have a sign-in list or a check, like they're not even collecting emails.
Yeah, yes, I am so with you, sister. That just kills me.
Yeah,
but
like,
yes.
What happens when you do have a book out? What are you going to do then? You're going to sell to who? Because you've been speaking for 4 years with no emails coming in. No, collect the emails.
Right.
Yeah, they're leaving money on the table. I would say about 50% of the room usually buys at least one book. If you have multiple books, you're going to sell half of that again in multiple books. That's pretty much been the proven case for myself. I have over 10 books. 4 of those are business books, so it's a completely different audience from the others. But and 2 are author books. So it depends on my audience that I'm speaking to. But when I'm speaking to Christian authors, I'm selling the 6 of my books to all, and they're going, and they're series. And so they're buying 2 at a time. But it's really that simple. In fact, I will.
Yeah. And I'd like to take the money. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We have a little bit of a delay, so it feels like we're talking over each other, but it's in certain parts. But I do want to talk about the money piece a little bit more, because there's impact,
Absolutely.
right? That lasting impact is a whole different set of why you'd want to, whole different reason of why you'd want to do the book. But I'm with you, Brenda, on the sell of the books as obvious monetary gain. What I've seen to be really powerful for books is the person who's willing to buy your book is generally also the person who's willing to become your premium level client, should you offer a service on the back end. And you are less forgettable if they've got your book in their hands, right? They bought the book.
Absolutely.
They're flipping through it and they're like, this is fabulous. I'm going to do it, but I don't want to do it alone. Let me call up Brenda Haire and have her help me.
And then if you put all your back ads in the back, they know exactly how to connect with you and for what, right? So if they want to hire me as a speaker, it's in there. If they want to work with me as a coach, it's in there. So we teach that as well for our authors, what to put in the back for their back ads, even if they're not ready. Like if you have a brand new speaker and they're like, okay, I'm going to write this book. What do I put? And I just walked through this with one of my authors. We put a speaking ad and she's like, I don't know what I'm speaking on. And I'm like, you're speaking on your book. So let's break down the chapters in your book. What are the topics from that? Those are what we're listing as your topics for you as a speaker. These are the speakers, the things that you cover. So breaking that down for them is so much more simpler than they think it is. They really only need one good speech written. They've got their book, they've got a course, they've got their one-on-one, coaching, if that's what they decide to do. There's just so many options with just one good speech.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, Brenda, because one talk, I call it a brand, a signature brand versus a signature talk. One talk, one book, one course. It's 100 different talks, because what you emphasize for that particular audience, it's still the core of your brand, right? It's still the core of who you are and what they came to expect from you, because you don't want to be all over the place. You need to snap back to that core brand, but it can still, how you emphasize, how deep you go in a certain area gives them so much more than maybe the last time that they heard you, or an organization wants you to focus, right, in a certain way. You're like, I just have one talk. No, you don't. Done right, even if it's a one book, they can emphasize a certain chapter, a certain section. So much there. And in your case, you've got 10.
Yeah. And expanding and contracting on the one thing. So like my first book has 16 chapters. So there's 16 talks right there. Then you've got each chapter itself. I can do a 5-minute speech on, or I can do an hour long, or I could do a whole women's retreat. It really just depends on what the event planner needs for me. And if they need a specific topic that I maybe don't have in the book, is there a way for me to tie that back to them? And I'm sure this is something that you help your speakers with. I help my authors with it, is seeing how that ties together. Because sometimes they're so in it, they can't see the bigger picture and how it ties together.
Yes.
So really helping them see the bigger picture. One of the things that, for me as an author, I started out wanting to be an author before speaking. And I think people are either writers or speakers primarily, and then they maybe have the other overlapping, right? But a lot of these programs that are out there, vanity presses or even coaching programs, they teach people to be, you've got to be an author, speaker, coach, an author, speaker, coach, an author, speaker, coach. It's like, well, not everybody's meant to be those things. Not everybody is meant for that. And so understanding what that looks like for yourself, you may only have one book in you, and that's okay. You don't have to have 10. If you have that one, it's going to help expand your income. It's going to help expand your reach, your impact, like you talked about. Maybe you're not a coach. Maybe you don't want to be tied down to your seat where you're having to do that. Maybe you want to travel, or maybe you don't want to travel and you'd rather be coaching behind a computer screen than being a speaker on a stage somewhere. Then there's that option too, right? So really figuring out what it is for you and how those things work in your world is important to me to help my authors succeed. Because trying to be something that you're not is never helpful. That's why I help people write their books, because if you're not a writer, trying to be a writer is no fun. Writing as a writer is hard enough. So let me help you write the book without having to become the writer, right?
Yeah. So on that note, first of all, fabulous advice all the way through. And I've got two more really important questions for you. But before we go there, and tied to what you're just now saying, at this point in the show, there are people out there who've been really marinating in the fact that they want to do a book, and they just don't even know where to begin or really how to cross that finish line. So for them, how do they reach out to you, get on a phone call with you, kind of investigate whether or not you'd be a good fit for them?
Sure. They can reach out to me either at brendahaire.com, which is my name, Brenda Haire, hair like the hair on your head, but with an E on the end. brendahaire.com or publishandtell.com, either one. And, send me an email. Let's schedule a time and figure out which route works for you, if any, and really what's feasible for you. Some people will get on those calls and they'll ask, I had a lady the other day, we had a call, and she said, I have 3 book ideas and I'm not sure if they work together or not work together. And so helping her figure out if there was an umbrella for those 3 books to fit under was what we spend our whole time doing. Now, that was actually a paid consultation because it was a little bit more than just asking, the questions. But I do that as well. So if someone's just like, I need an hour with you just to pick your brain, then I do have that option too. And then if they decide to come into my program, I roll that fee over into their program so that they, don't pay double.
Oh, nice. That's very fair. So we'll make sure to have the links in the description. But if you're just listening, it's pretty straightforward. Brenda, you should know how to spell Brenda. Haire, you should know how to spell hair and stick an E on the end, right? That's fabulous. Okay. I have a last question, and then I have our signature closing question. What should, before embarking on this year with you or with somebody, what should a speaker already have in place to embark on trying to get a book done within the year? What should they rely on themselves for, and what should they lean on professionals for?
Time. Time is what they need. Right? They need time. If you don't have time to breathe, you don't have time to write a book, right? So people are like, oh, I'm so busy, I don't have time. If you have time to watch television at night, you have time to write a book. If you have time to take a nap on a Saturday, you have time to write a book. So time is the number one thing that people need in order to get their book done. How they spend that time then becomes the priority, right? They have to make it a priority to get the book done. Now, what should they hire out for and what should they do themselves? It's really up to the person. A lot of people will say, and you might have alluded to this in the beginning, but maybe if you have a family member who's published a book or you have this, and that's great if it's a professionally published book. What happens a lot, and I'm constantly repairing things for people. I'm working with an author right now who paid someone a lot of money to publish her book, and on the back of her book, on her book cover, currently on Amazon, it literally says synopsis, book synopsis, author bio. I'm like, oh dear, who put that? And
Oh
so
no.
if that's the person you're asking for advice, because that's your friend who published a book, then you're going to get that advice. And so you don't want that advice. So really looking at the person, like if it's okay to ask someone for advice, but look at what they've got, right? Look at their book. Would you buy their book? Do you like their cover? Is their editing any good? Before you ask them. Even I hear a lot of times people say, oh, well, my sister was an English teacher for 15 years. Great, but has she ever edited a book for sale? There's a difference. And so, understanding, the different styles, and Chicago manual style is different from editing third grade English, and so really knowing who you're working with and the end result. So I just tell people, even out there in the world, I see it all the time. There will be a speaker or somebody will pop up as a new publisher and they'll say, work with me. And you're like, well, where are your books? And they're like, well, I haven't published. What? You haven't published, but you want to publish me. You go first. How about that? And I see it all the time. I'm part of all these different writer groups,
Wow.
and it'll pop up all the time. Somebody said the other day, what should I offer my clients? I'm going to become a publisher. And I'll say, well, how many books have you published? None. And that's literally the advice I typed on Facebook. Go publish your first book first, and then you'll know exactly what they need. Because, and so you've got to see who you're working with. Do they know what they're offering? Whether you're paying me or somebody, $15,000 or more, go look at their work. Do you like their work? Would you buy their books? Are they edited? All of those things. Just take a look at it. And a lot of times people don't even know what to look for. And so just be aware of what you're getting yourself into. Yeah. Did that answer that question? I think I went a little.
Well, and linking up, you did. No, that was fabulous. And linking up with somebody who has published, and somebody like you who's published 10 books of their own, and how many countless for other people, you know what to look for. Somebody who has never published before, they don't know what they don't know, right? Until they've gotten down the road and made some oftentimes very expensive mistakes, or just a colossal waste of time, which in itself is very expensive. So I love what you brought to the table. Okay. Signature question, which might align with some of the things you've already said, but we are here to make a pact with the Speak Pact audience on making the greatest impact that they can with their message and what they bring to the table. What is something tactical that the average of us busy professionals can do that will begin moving the needle in helping us prepare, getting ready to really go that next step with getting a book published?
I love this question. And it's so much easier than people think. Record everything. Anytime you go to speak, record it. I don't care if it's at a 5-minute MOPS group and you're speaking, record it. If you're record. Because even if you never publish a book, you should be listening to your own recordings as a speaker, right? To improve and move the needle in your own speaking business, right? Like even today, I've heard myself say the word absolutely. I don't know how many times. I'm like, where did this word come from today? The word of the day, absolutely, in my book, apparently. But if that may be something that you do, right? When you're speaking, you're using the same word over and over. And if you're not recording yourself and listening to yourself back, you'll never know, right? Because the average audience is not going to give you that feedback. I remember we hired this lady at my church to be our worship speaker or our worship leader. And she was a great singer, but she was not comfortable praying in front of other people and really leading people in worship. And so the first thing out of her mouth, every time after the song ended, she would go, and then she would start. And it was a big, every time. And so after about 3 months of this, I said, I can't do this anymore. I've got to go talk to her. And so I said, I don't know that you're aware of this, but every time when you grab the mic, the first thing you say is, I said, just now that I've made you aware of it, think of another word that you can say. Maybe you're saying amen because the song just ended. Maybe you're saying, right. But she would have never known. She's not listening to herself back. Right. But if you're listening to yourself back, you're going to catch those things more often. I listen to myself back, but I also ask my husband a lot because he'll often come to my speaking events. And I know one of my faults is I pause. And when I open, I make the smacking sound. So I know this about myself, and so I try not to do it. But you would never know that unless you recorded it, right? But in the book world, if you're recording all your speeches, the book's done. We just got to put it in the right order. And you don't have to transcribe it necessarily. We can either use an AI service, you can pay somebody, whatever, but it's there. So record, record, record.
I love that. I love that you said that, because when I cared for my mom for about 7 years, for her final chapter of life here on earth. And she was hilarious. So hilarious Italian woman who was just, you couldn't even make up some of the things, right? And I wanted to write a movie for her, but in the kind of feel of the original big fat Greek wedding. But no time, all the things, the timing isn't right in my life. So I just began just turning on the recording and say, Mom, tell me about, just tell me the stories. And then when she would do quirky, funny things, I would speak into a recording. So I have all of that. I don't know when or if I'll ever get to it. I hope so, because it really would make a fabulous movie. Pairing the beauty of a person's personality with the sadness, that comes with some of the things that she was going through cognitively and with her world. I think it could really have an amazing message. However, the timing wasn't right for me right there. And I'm glad I did something right with regards to getting her story out there in a way that could really help other people. And that was recording. One thing.
Yeah. And even if you do nothing else with it, you now have it for your
Yes.
family and your children and their children and their children. Yeah. And impact, sometimes when we get kind of blindfolded, right? Because we're authors, we're spending money on getting these books done, and now we got to go make money, right? We got to get that ROI. But when we start getting the other kind of return, and we start getting that impact, those emails even for my Writer's Retreat Box, I offer a Writer's Retreat Box subscription box service for Christian women authors. So if you're a Christian woman and you can't get away to a book retreat, but you want one in your home, that's the gift for you. And I'll get the feedback, and the people will say, this brand new one just went out to a first-time subscriber last month, and she said, this is exactly the message. There's a devotional in it that the whole box is themed around. And she said, this is exactly the message that I needed right now. And just that, hello, wouldn't you like to hear that about your message? You got to get your message out there, right? So we just got to get them out there. That's the impact. You're really changing lives. Books change people's lives.
Yes, it does. And the people who are seeking out, who are willing to read the book, they're seeking out the answers. So they're the people, right, that you're writing it for. One thing I will say, if you're recording, taking notes, have one place for all of that to go to, whether it's Dropbox, Google Drive, Evernote. Is Evernote in that family? But anyway, that's the one thing that I wish I would have thought to do in the very beginning. I did later. Trello is another one. I think that would be fabulous. But make sure it's all in one place so that when you do get ready to do the thing, you don't have the excuse of, I got to go find all the pieces that I put together over the year. But I love that piece of advice,
great advice,
Brenda, that just record, start. That's the first part in making it real. You're intending to write the book. So you're taking some action to do that. And we can all do that. We all carry a recorder. All of us do in our pocket, right? Every single day. So this is so actionable. And that was a brilliant mandate that you gave everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I do it myself. I do it especially on road trips when I'm in the car for 5 hours by myself. I'm recording chapters. It may not be the same book. It's whatever thought and then whatever thought. And I just label it. This is for this book, and then this is for this book, and I'm just recording away.
Hence, you are still fairly young, and you have 10 books under your belt, right?
Yeah, but I have more. I saw a shirt today. It said, I have more on my to be read list than I do days left or something like that, like years left. And I said, or my to be written list. I have more books on my to be written list than I have years left of my life. So I need to be writing more.
Well, thank you for bringing all of this beautiful, these strategies, these ideas, hopefully spurred those of us who are listening, who have just been marinating in the fact that it'd be good to have a book. If you're a speaker, I recommend it. I'm recommending it for myself, and with services like Brenda's, and just with the resources we have in this day and time, right? We're not plucking it out on a typewriter these days. There really is, if you want to get it done, you can get it done, right? It's, do you choose Netflix or do you choose getting up early? What do you do, right? What are you going to do to get it done? And for speakers, it's a door opener, it's an extra revenue generator, and it keeps you top of mind, all ticking all those boxes that Brenda brought up along the way. So fabulous. Thank you for being with us today, Brenda.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Incredible time.
Thank you.
All right. And for our Speak Packed audience, ciao, ciao for now.
Thank you for listening to the Speak Packed podcast. To become a recommended speaker of Antoniette's WPC speaker agency, or you are a host or planner looking for a dynamic expert in optimized performance, Antoniette would like to personally meet with you. Secure a time with her at speakerbooker.com. Again, that is speakerbooker.com. It all begins with a vision, a voice, and a pact to impact. Join the Speak Packed movement by joining our new private Facebook group at the link in our show notes. Find us on nearly every social media platform at One Antoniette. That's number 1, ANTONIETTE, or simply hashtag SpeakPacked.